Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by user BaloneyFishHo. The post is titled, "This is a confession and a long overdue apology to my Air Force friends. My ex-wife is responsible for a fellow airman's I, 29F, have been thinking about making this post for a long time, but I've had no idea how to put it into words or how to get the story out. This is all mostly speculation on my part, as I don't have any actual proof. Just a lot of circumstantial stuff. I'm not going to name drop any of the bases I was stationed at or any of the people involved, as I don't exactly want this story getting back to the military or affecting anyone I know personally. I joined the military back in early 2017. No one in my family has been military, so I was going into this blind basically. I went to basic and met my now ex-wife. And yes, I made the stupid decision a lot of military personnel do in marrying someone I had known for a very short amount of time. We met in basic training, and in hindsight, I was only trying to cling to someone because I was scared of being alone and that far away from home for the first time. Nothing inappropriate ever happened between us during basic. I wasn't willing to mess up my career, but we maintained contact after basic and got married during tech school. This is where I should have taken a sign from the universe because I was set to go to an awesome base in a really cool part of the world, but getting married to her changed my orders to a very small base in the western part of the United States. She arrived at the duty station first, and then I arrived there shortly after around October. We moved into a cute house and started trying to build a life together. For some context, my ex-wife had experienced some physical abuse during childhood, so she had a lot of triggers and issues I was trying to help her deal with. Nothing ever seemed to improve during our marriage, and maybe I'll sound like an asshole for this, but as the new relationship love blinders began to come off, it seemed like she played into her traumas a lot and used them for attention. She would introduce herself to people and almost immediately divulge her past. My name is X, and this is what happened to me in my childhood. It was like she thought this was the most interesting thing about her, but I digress. We spent a very short time at this base, only about 8 months, during which time she spent a stint of time in a mental health facility. While she was there, I would go to visit, and one day when visiting, these girls ran up to me and told me she had been kissing a random guy in the courtyard. I asked her side, and of course I let her convince me that they were making it up and had a skewed view of what had actually happened. I should have listened to them and trusted my gut. When she finally got back from the facility, she had made a friend while there that was stationed at the same base as us. She had time off work to reacclimate, and so did he. This is a different guy from the one she had been supposedly kissing in the courtyard. They started spending a lot of time together. One day she came to pick me up from work and they were together in her car. When she pulled up, he was in the front seat and she told me to get in the back. I thought it was weird since we were married, but I let it slide and just got in. They proceeded to basically ignore me and talk to each other. I had a really bad gut feeling that she was cheating on me with him, but I had no real proof besides the feeling and their weird behavior, so I let it go and tried to ignore the feeling. It's been some years now, so I don't really remember why they stopped hanging out, but their hangouts eventually became less frequent and then stopped altogether. I'm going to skip forward a little to the day of the biggest incident. I was at work on a Friday evening. I was an MP. I was posted at a gate, and over the radio I heard them ask one of my flight members to drive down the road I live on because a neighbor reported seeing a man peeping in windows. The person they asked to go check it out was one of my friends, and I'm not trying to say anything bad about him here, but he was hesitant to do his job a lot. I think he loved his job, but it made him nervous. So I believe he did drive down my street, but I don't think he did much of a check, to be honest. I also texted my wife after hearing that to make sure she was okay, and I don't think I heard back from her for a while. I didn't think anything of that because she was usually painting or watching one of her TV shows or something of that nature, and I was also preoccupied because I was at work. But he comes back across the radio and says he didn't see anything suspicious, and that situation ended for the evening. A couple of days later, I was back at work again when my wife texted me and told me that she had to tell me something. She asked me not to tell anyone, and she proceeded to tell me that the neighbor had assaulted her on Friday. My head started spinning and I told her she shouldn't ask me not to say anything because it was literally in my job description to be a mandatory reporter. When I said that to her, she freaked out and drove to the building where I work, got out of her car, and dramatically collapsed on the stairs in front of the building, crying and basically shouted what had happened to her. The next few hours were a whirlwind of interviews, statements, reports, talking to higher command, and being told we could move to a new base. My head was still spinning. I had never even been around a situation like this, and so I had no idea what to do except try to be there for her. A day or so later, I finally got the whole story from her. She said the neighbor had come over and come in through the garage. She asked him what he was doing there, and he replied, "You look tense, let me rub your shoulders." And she didn't question that, she just accepted his offer. After a minute, he said it would be easier if she took her shirt off, so she did. And then he suggested it would be easier if she was lying down. So they moved into the guest room on the bed, and that's where she said he flipped her over and on her chest. Believe me, I know how unbelievable this all sounds now. At the time, I don't know why I didn't see any of the red flags in this story. Skipping forward a bit, they moved us to a new base closer to my family, as she didn't want to move closer to her family because she wasn't close with them. Moving there is when our marriage really started to deteriorate. The new squadron I was assigned to was horrible with corrupt leadership, so work life was awful. And I tried to be patient with my wife. I'd come home from work and clean the house and try to take care of everything so she didn't have to worry with any of it. She ended up in a mental facility 2 more times, but overall, she never seemed to improve. My life turned into being extremely unhappy at work and coming home to a constantly trashed house, so I spent all of my time either working or cleaning. I was in a borderline state for a long time because of how all of this was affecting my mental health. I'm going to skip around a bit because there are a lot of insignificant things that happened that don't matter too much for this story. But one day I had a friend I had made on flight, and he started hanging out with my wife and me a lot. One afternoon, we were all out in town together when I told them I needed to go to 2 or 3 more stores. They didn't really want to go, so they said they were going to go back to our house to hang out. Well, I ended up finding everything I needed at one store, so I went back to the house early. When I got there, I found the front door locked. I unlocked the door and went in and found no one in the living room except my dog. So I walked up to my dog and started to pet him, and that's when my then wife came running down the hallway from our bedroom. She made a playful growling sound at my dog and then looked up at me and said, "Oh hey, I was just in the bedroom." Then my friend came walking out of my room and down the hall, and he said, "I was just in the bathroom looking at my eyebrows in the mirror." I looked at them both really weird, and I felt like I was in some weird sitcom all of a sudden. I just blew past it at the time, but it never left my mind. The way they acted was so weird. Now, at this time, for more context, I was so unhappy in my marriage, I was honestly hoping to catch her cheating. I knew how badly I had effed it up, and I really didn't want to have to admit that to anyone. I wanted her to give me a good reason for divorce. I know how selfish and wrong that sounds, but honestly, I was so embarrassed. The way she could only ever talk about her trauma, she never had anything positive to say. Any conversation anyone ever had with her was either cringy, awkward, or she would act overtly in any situation, even around my more traditional family. She was extremely controlling of me and anything I wanted to do with my time. She didn't even know how to make a funny joke. She would make odd jokes or uncomfortable ones and would get mad at everyone when no one laughed. I wanted out so bad and didn't know how to do it. Skipping forward again, at this point, my head was completely out of my marriage. We were having a dinner party at my house with some of our mutual friends. She was not off work yet when most of them came over, but about an hour later, she got off work and was headed home. She called me on the way home because I guess she wasn't feeling good, and she told me that she thought she either had a brain tumor or a blockage. I'm not gonna lie. My response was less than supportive, because at this point I was mentally done with her and all of her ridiculous behavior. I told her that if she thought she had a brain tumor, that she should just go to the hospital, and she got mad at me because I did not offer to drive her. The hospital was less than 5 minutes away, by the way. One of our mutual friends, now my current wife, could tell I was really over it and offered to drive her to the hospital. I continued to sit around and have a good time with our friends now. For some context, this hospital takes an incredibly long time to see walk-ins in the emergency room, so during this time I had half of a beer within a 3-hour period. We were expecting her to be there upwards of 6 hours. She calls me after about 4 hours and tells me she is ready to be picked up, and trying to be a responsible person, I told her that I was uncomfortable driving because I had half of a beer and I did not realize she would come out of the hospital that soon. She absolutely blew up on me and told me I was irresponsible and unreliable. One of my other friends offered to go pick her up, and while they were gone, we decided it would be best to move the party to someone else's house because of how she was going to be when she got back from the hospital. Sadly, we did not relay this information to him fast enough, so he got home before we were able to leave. My ex exploded out of the car, ran up to me and got right in my face and started yelling at me. My friend's mom jumped to my defense. She was very drunk at the time, so it was quite funny, but she got in my ex-wife's face and told her to leave me alone. My ex-wife threw a fit and then ran into the backyard. At that point, we decided to pack up as quickly as we could and leave. Keep in mind that at this point, it had been about 2 hours since I had had a sip of my last beer. I felt fine. I hopped in the car with one of my friends so we could leave, and I heard a screaming noise. I look over and my ex-wife is running towards my car, and so I put the car in drive and started to take off as she ran up and punched my window. I made it about half a mile away, and I waited to make sure that the rest of my friends made it out of there. I saw no other cars coming from that direction, so I turned around and went back. When I got back, 2 of my friends were trying to reason with her in the front yard. She, in her manic state, tried to get in her car and drive off. They were trying to get her to get out of her car. She turned the wheel very hard and almost ran over my friend as she was trying to back out. So he used his police officer voice and yelled at her to get out of her car. At that point, I decided it was time to call my squadron and have them send over her squadron's first shirt. I also called my friend that I suspected her of cheating on me with and asked him to come over. Because they seemed to have a very close connection, I wanted her to have someone she could calmly talk to. She was removed from the house for 3 days so that we could both have space. When she got back home after 3 days, she sat down next to me on my porch and said to me, "It's not gonna happen until you say it," to which I replied, "I want a divorce." I think I've given enough detail on my ex-wife and the situation at hand, so I'm just going to get into the other details. Fast forward to when I started confiding in my now wife. At the time, she was married, but she was also going through a rocky situation. I'm not really going to go into that because that is not what the story is about, and those details don't really matter too much. My current wife is a very smart person. I told her basically this entire story in a lot more detail. She started to point out to me the holes in the story and the red flags that just did not make any sense. I already had my doubts and suspicions, but hearing it from somebody else started to put it in perspective. To add one more sad detail, one of my friends went on a TDY, a short deployment that was only 2 weeks long. When he got back, he told me that he ran into somebody from my old base and they had a message for me. The message was that the person who had allegedly assaulted my wife had committed suicide. He had hanged himself in his bathroom and before doing so, transferred everything into his wife's name, including all of his money. I called my ex to inform her and her response was a very sarcastic, "Okay, you couldn't have just told me this over text." I just hung up the phone and later that night she texted me saying, "Do you think he did that to himself because of what he did to me?" I never replied to her because her responses seemed insane to me and like she was trying to seem empathetic even though she wasn't. Those responses made me start to doubt the incident even more. For a little more context, after we moved to the new base, she and I had flown back and forth to the old base multiple times for court proceedings. I was not allowed to sit in the courtroom during everyone's side because they considered me to be a witness. I wish I had gotten to sit in the courtroom and heard his side of the story because things just don't add up. The evidence ended up being inconclusive and the charges were dropped. Between my now wife and I, we both believe what happened is that Friday night when someone was peeping through the window, we think that my ex-wife knew that someone from my squadron saw what happened, or at least part of it, and she wanted to make an excuse for it before I found out that she had cheated on me with the neighbor. So instead of just owning up to it, she decided it would be better to tell me that the neighbor had assaulted her, and I believe that she hoped I wouldn't say anything and that it would just get swept under the rug. But when I reacted to it, she had to make a full-blown case out of it and go for the full story. She ended up ruining that poor man's life, his marriage, destroying his kids' lives, everything. When all of this was happening, when I was still at my first base, all of my friends that I had been working with stopped talking to me. I had no idea what I had done then, and it's taken me a long time to come to this conclusion, but I think I finally know why. I believe that they think I was possibly in on it. With this much hindsight, I wouldn't blame any of them for believing that or feeling that way. I don't know how I did not see all of those red flags through every story and through all of her actions and everything that happened. I think that they believe I went along with it so that we could get out of that small base and out of that state and go somewhere better. But the complete truth for me is that I had no idea. I don't know why I couldn't see it at the time. I was just trying to be a supportive spouse, and I truly believed that something bad had happened to her. After so much time of realizing the kind of person she is and how horrible she is, I no longer believe her side of the story. It's just got too many holes in it. She acted so friendly with our neighbor too. I believe she heavily flirted with him whenever I wasn't home. For the record, I finally did get confirmation after the divorce that she cheated on me. She ended up dating the guy she cheated on me with. He and I are still great friends to this day. I honestly don't care that happened between them. It got her to stop obsessing over me. But when she and he finally broke up, we asked him if that day when she and he came walking out of our bedroom, if they had been doing anything, and he admitted to it. That kind of put the nail in the coffin to every other suspicion I had ever had about her cheating on me. I honestly believe she had cheated on me multiple times with all of the guys I suspected and probably more. She is a narcissist and a very terrible person. Not to say that I'm a victim in all of this. I should have reasoned more with this and seen the flags sooner. I feel a lot of guilt over what happened to that poor man and his family. That is why I'm writing this now, even after all this time. To any of my friends in the Air Force, if you read this post, I want you to know how sorry I am, and I really hope you believe me when I say that I had no idea at the time. I was not trying to get out of that base. The one who ended up deciding to move us across the United States was her. At the time, I was just trying to be supportive. I haven't name-dropped any bases or named any people in the story, but I'm sure the details will let you know who I am. And if my ex-wife happens to read this post, fuck you, leave me alone, and please just let me have my peace. I didn't tell the story to dredge up anything from the past. I didn't tell this story to stir up drama. I just still feel incredibly guilty and wanted to get it off my chest. If you have any questions about any more details, put them in the comment section and I will do my best to answer them. If you read this post all the way through, thank you, it's incredibly long, I'm sorry. User Jen Mari said, "You need to know that you are not responsible for that man's Your ex made a choice that night, and due to very unfortunate circumstances, you're a byproduct of the situation. It was not you who decided to lie about what happened and create false allegations. You were none the wiser. That is what manipulative abusers do. His death is not on you, and you need to stop blaming yourself." Under this comment, OP said, "I definitely feel conflicted because I know it wasn't my fault. I don't necessarily blame myself, but I wish I had been able to see the signs sooner. I was definitely a bit naive before I joined the military. I had never been around or known anyone who had been through any assault experiences before, so I had no idea what a real story sounded like compared to a fake one." This next story was made in the AITAH subreddit by a user named OKProgrammer. The post is titled AITA for not donating my bone marrow to my birth father. I, 17M, am adopted. My birth parents weren't able to care for a newborn and I ended up in foster care because of it. I was adopted by my family when I was 2. I have a very happy life, one I likely wouldn't have with my birth parents. About a month ago, my birth parents got into contact with my family. Long story short, my birth father is sick and needs a bone marrow transplant. They are on a wait list but haven't heard back just yet. I am the only child they ever had and odds are I am a match. Pretty much they wanted my parents to get me tested and then donate my marrow to him. My parents told me that it's up to me, and after some thought I said no. I don't know them other than they gave birth to me. They have had no part in my life whatsoever, and now they suddenly need me. Well, they sent my parents a nasty message saying they can sue to force me to donate my marrow. I do feel a little bad, but I feel like this isn't my problem. Am I the jerk? Sorry, right after I posted, I went to the store with my mom. Just wanted to clear up some things I read in the comments. I'm a boy, but flattered some of you think I'm pretty enough to be a girl. I have no contact or anything with my birth parents. From what my parents told me, I was put into foster care when I was less than a month old. That is how they got me, and they decided to adopt me, which was finalized when I turned 2. I have 4 siblings and I have a great life. They told me when I was old enough that I was adopted, but outside of that, I had no idea who my birth parents were or what they even looked like. Someone said I should do it cause what if I need medical information, want to get to know them, or something like that. Yeah, no, I have no desire to get to know these people. None. I have no desire to seek out grandparents, cousins, and uncles. I don't want to know if some form of rare cancer runs in the family cause they are not my family. I haven't spent 17 years of my life with them. Why would I want to get to know them? Edit, for those of you who keep saying you should reconsider it, how about you donate to him? My parents told me to think about it. I thought it, and the answer is no. No, I'm not doing it. That's it. It's early, I'm getting ready for school between typing this. Read more comments this morning, and again, let me clear something up. My egg and sperm donors didn't lovingly give me up. I was taken. My parents don't know the exact reason, cause that information was never released to them. They were told, and I quote, "It wasn't a good environment for a child. I was taken. Even if they had given me up, it doesn't mean I owe them anything. Not like I asked to be born like every freaking child on this green earth. If being born means I am suddenly in debt to them, I would have been the slowest sperm you ever seen. I would have happily raced into a sock. Y'all can be a bunch of hypocrites. In one breath, you say there are kids in foster care who need a home. Well, I was a foster kid who was given a home by 2 loving parents. Then in the next breath you are saying, what about your family? I have a family. They have raised me for 17 years. Medical history, some very helpful people have privately messaged me to let me know that in 2021 I get all that shit without ever having to speak to these people again. Ever. Amazing how far science has come, right? I'm going to be showing this to some of my friends today cause I have to admit I'm over it. It's not my problem if this man dies. And again, some people have pointed out in the comments odds are I wouldn't be a match anyway, and he has been lucky getting a donor off the list, and it will be faster than waiting on me to get tested only to be told I'm not a match anyway. And again, with those on your hill screaming, well, wouldn't you donate to a stranger? I donate blood mostly because it gets me out of class. I like donating blood. If someone receives that blood, then congratulations. I put no more thought into it besides that. Even if they had come to my parents and said, hey, you adopted our son and, well, we need a favor. Sorry to ask, but my answer would have still been no. I did my own research and found plenty of stories of kids who were used like gold mines for their genetic materials by their parents to save their siblings or a family member, and that is all they were to their families. Someone who had the right match. I don't owe them anything. I don't care if she spent 8 hours in labor with me. They aren't my family. I have a wonderful family who are supporting me right now. Also, my parents are working on finding out how the hell they even knew where I was cause my adoption was a closed one. They had their rights terminated when I was taken. They shouldn't know shit about me. I don't know if they are contacting a lawyer or anything. I know they are pretty upset about all of this. I have to get to school. Later. In the update, OP said the following, I know this is long overdue. I started college, life and COVID put things on hold for a bit. Long story short, I didn't donate the bone marrow. My birth parents started harassing my family on the regular, resulting in calls to the police. They were arrested, my adoption had been closed. They used some shady private investigator to find me and basically just showed up on the doorstep demanding my bone marrow. My family did press charges. As of right now, as far as I am aware, they are still sitting in a prison cell while they wait for their day in court as things are still delayed due to COVID. I guess my sperm donor's illness wasn't that serious or he got a donation. I don't know. Anyway, just thought I would update this old post. I'll answer questions if you have them. That's it. Edit. Someone asked why I was taken. Honestly, I still don't know the full story, nor do my parents. They said they asked, but never got the full answer. The answer they told me was someone called the police and told them to do a welfare check on my sperm and egg donors, complaining they constantly heard a baby, me, crying. Drugs may have been involved, which my parents think so. I was placed in foster care and from there I was adopted. Why did they find me? My father feels they wanted money and the bone marrow story was a lie. We only based this off of the fact my sperm donor seems fine. We don't know if he got the bone marrow from someone else or whatever, but we think the story was made up in order to harass us and get money from my parents. We aren't rich, just middle class. My mom has her business and is a stay-at-home mom while my dad is an electrician. Did I ever sign up to donate bone marrow? No, I did not. I'm not comfortable with that, but I still donate blood. What about genetics? I haven't gotten tested for anything yet. Other family? I don't care. During that time, someone reached out to me on Facebook claiming to be an aunt. I didn't reply to the message. User Aradine said, the reality is the moment they started harassing or pressuring you, you didn't qualify as a donor. Donors must be 100% voluntary without any pressure. I'm glad your parents protected you. I went back and read the original post where people were saying, what about your medical history? That's the weakest reason in the world for a donation. You can get a medical profile that covers most things these days through DNA testing if you wanted to know badly enough. Good on you for sticking to your guns. Good luck in college. A deleted user said, my dad gave his brother marrow once. Now their DNA matches on testable levels, meaning if his brother decided to lead a life of crime, my dad could be blamed on DNA evidence. User Red Warrior said, I can't believe people told you to donate because of family. I volunteered in an orphanage once and almost none of the kids had dead parents. My country is small and that's a state orphanage in the capital. It's definitely more common here for kids to go to relatives than to an orphanage when both parents die. Anyway, lots of these kids had all or some of their siblings living with their parents because apparently those people still don't know how to put a condom on. That was the day when I hated people like that. You don't owe anything to your sperm donor, and I'm glad they're getting what they deserve.